Now, Bea was a very rich woman, but it was hard for her to part with a buck. If King or one of her friends could not drive her someplace at night to a show or something, she wouldn't go because she wouldn't drive at night. And my friend Charles kept saying, well, Bea, just hire a car and drive her. And she'd say, oh, no, 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 too expensive. Well, one night we were on the way to her house for dinner, and Charles said to me, now look, if Larry, if the talk gets around to lawyers and things, just act like you don't know anything. I said, well, Charles, that'd be really easy because I don't know anything. So we got to Bee's and we were out by the pool having drinks, and they were talking and talking, and finally Bea turned to me and she said, now Larry, I know you don't know what we're talking about, but I happen to own a tiny little piece of Golden Girls and they're not paying me, so I'm suing them. In the car going home, I said, Charles, what do you think a tiny little piece of Golden Girls would be worth? And he said, well, I don't know for sure, but I've heard the figure 4 million bandied about. And still, after dinner one night, it was the night before she was going to leave town, and we'd had dinner and we were getting ready to leave, and she went to the refrigerator. And she pulled out this little plastic bag, you know, just a little refrigerator bag. It had some vegetables in it. It had a little lettuce, maybe a carrot or a radish or something in it, not much of anything. And she said, if I give you this, will you eat it? I said, yeah. She said, now if you're not going to eat it, I'll give it to somebody who will. I said, no, I'll eat it. She said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. She hated wearing shoes. Of course, she had very ugly feet. But she spent her whole one-woman tour, and probably on Broadway, barefooted. She would explain to the audience that on opening night at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, she had fallen off the stage and hurt her foot. Well, this has a certain ring of truth to it because I've been on that stage and it's damned easy to fall off of it the way it's set up. But anyway, I have a picture of her from my going away party from Los Angeles that my friend Ginger Perkins gave me. And it's just me and Bea, and people will look at it and say, well, what has she got in her hands? I said, well, it's her shoes. Charles died after I had left LA, and I was in Virginia at the Virginia Shakespeare Festival in Williamsburg directing, and when his memorial came up, and of course I couldn't go. And Bea called me in Williamsburg and asked me if I wanted her to read the service to me because Charles had written it all out. Who was going to say what, who sang what, where it all hit. And I said, sure. And so she said, well, all right. And she started to read it to me, and she'd have to stop and she'd say, I've got to go blow. And she would come back and read some more, and then she would say, I've got to go blow. Well, this was a very emotional time for her and for me. But I always felt grateful that Bea would do that for me. Amazing woman. She only came to Dallas once after I moved here, and that was because SMU was giving Angela Lansbury some kind of award, and they invited Bea to come along as part of the festivities. Well, Bea had called me from LA to tell me when she was coming in, and she said on her first night she wanted to take me to dinner, and so I should make some reservations. But she said, now, you know, I don't like crap. I said, yes, I know. So I got us reservations at the mansion on Turtle Creek. And when we pulled up to the valet parking, Bea looked around and said, well, bet you don't come here often, huh? And I said, no. She said, only when people with money come to town, huh? I said, yeah. Well, she liked the mansion. And so she trusted me and my friends Artie and Dwight to find us a place to go to lunch the next day, which was Saturday. Now, Artie had met her at one of the functions at SMU. As a matter of fact, she'd sort of stopped him on the way and said, "Where can I get some good Mexican food?" And Artie said, "Well, come on with me. We'll go to Javier's." And they did. Well, so she'd already known Artie. They'd had a good visit. So we started to plan on where we were going to go to lunch on Saturday. Now, you would think in Dallas on a Saturday afternoon, finding a rather upscale place to have lunch would be a snap. Well, don't believe it. I was going through the Friday supplement with all the restaurants in it, and Artie was calling up his Highland Park friends, and it was like we were setting up a UN mission, trying to find a place that Bea would be happy for lunch. Well, we finally decided on one very nice little place very near where I live called Parigi's, and it's very unassuming, and the food's quite good, and Bea liked it a lot. And she ordered whatever that egg dish that has the hollandaise sauce on it, I forget. But anyway, when they delivered it, it had fried potatoes with it, and she asked the woman if she could have some more sauce for her taters. And when the woman left to get it, she said, "It's not real hollandaise, but it's good." So after lunch, she said she wanted to come see my apartment. So the four of us came over here, and Bea sat on the sofa, and she looked around, and she said, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of Charles's apartment, only with taste. Well, she was sitting next to my little dog, Cassie, and at one point she said, "I don't mean to be rude, but I'm so comfortable I could go to sleep." What a compliment. It was a very good visit, except my little dog Cassie had snapped at her. Didn't get her, but Cassie was an equal opportunity snapper. Star status didn't cut anything with her. But as I say, it didn't get her, and Bea passed it off as nothing. And so on the way back to the hotel, we were talking, and she said that she thought my move to Dallas had been very good for me. And I said, I thought so too. And she said, "And I love your apartment." And I said, "Well, thank you, I do too." And she said, "And your sweet little doggy." That cunt.